That was even too expensive. When I first started recording, it was like 16 track. That was about the best that a guy could record on, right? And then it went to digital, still on tape, but thinner tape. And now it's all Pro Tools direct.
Yeah, exactly.
It seems to get thinner, you know, makes the music thinner, not quite as fat as it used to be. It's the same. It's the same comparison as a vinyl album, and then the vinyl album went to compact disc. Compact disc sounded a little bit worse, and now compact discs have been squashed even more and compressed even more to be like digital downloads, which makes it sound even worse, right?
Yeah, and if you're not doing it at 320 kilobytes per second, it's even worse.
But the funny thing that you were saying about tape for me is that picture that I gave you is the cover of the new record, and I was in this band with my guitar player called the Hellhounds back in the 90s, and we recorded an album, played live for about a year, and then he had to move to Vancouver, and so the CD never got released, and then 10 years later, 15 years later, he comes back from Vancouver and he winds up playing in Evil Elvis with me again. And because
Sorry.
His name is Mars Lafleur, my guitar player.
Right on.
And I think I learned this from Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day. You know, you don't give up on a good song. At least I'm not going to. Most people don't realize that their first studio album, first big, Dookie from '91, that was all the hits were songs from previous independent Green Day records, Longview, a lot of the hits that made it off of Dookie. And I seen an interview with him, and he was like, don't ever give up on a good song. If you believe in a good song, make sure that people hear it, which was the point, right? No one heard it on his independent stuff, and then when they got signed, the songs got re-recorded, and he was right, they were hits. So there's two of those songs, speaking of tape, that are going to be on the new record.
Oh, the new one, which isn't here.
No,
I have these two here.
Working on it now. It's going to be called Zombie Outlaw.
Oh, awesome. Great name.
And two of the songs are actual Hellhounds songs, and with the cost of recording and stuff today, because they never got released, I want to go back into the studio and obviously record the album. We'll have to record it on Pro Tools or something, but there's these two songs that I want to record the vocals over again. I want to have my upright bass player come in and do his parts.
What's his name?
His name is Jefferson Shepard.
He wields that thing like it's...
Jefferson Shepard is probably the best upright bass player in Canada, next to Colin from the Brains, I would imagine.
Oh my gosh.
It's funny, actually, because he was in my favorite band. For the longest time, the Matadors were my favorite psychobilly band. And he plays on the Horrorbilly 9000. He plays on the biggest Matadors record. But I wanted to re-record these songs. One's called Too Fast For You, and one's called Sick of This Shit. And I figured, okay, it'd be cheaper just to go back to the old tape, because they were recorded on digital tape, right? And just redo the vocals and have Jefferson come in and redo the bass and put them on the new record. And because it's tape, it's such a clusterfuck, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
The day that we were supposed to go in there to record, the board sort of blew up. It's like it's been a nightmare trying to get those songs re-recorded just because they were done on tape,
Yeah.
But yeah, we started in 2000,
Cool.
I'm a singer. I've been, singing for bands for a long time before 99 came along, and I just figured, I'm 39. Every time you were in a band, right, you give it everything you've got, you put everything you've had into it, and then there's the explosion, right, where the band kind of falls apart. Somebody, who wrote the songs with you doesn't want the songs being used, or someone who came up with the name doesn't want the name being used. Both of those are obviously really important to a band, right? The name is the recognition factor, and the songs, those are obviously what you play every night to entertain people. And after a while, you just get so tired of giving it everything you got for 3 or 4 years, and then it just all falls apart on you, you know what I mean? So when I was 39, I figured, that's it, I'm going solo. And that was in 2000, went psychobilly.
Yeah. So, introduce yourself. Tell us about who you are.
Well, my name is KC, and I'm the singer of a band called Evil Elvis. As mentioned, in '99, I was just sort of tired of playing with bands. It started as me going solo. The first record is called Evil Elvis, which is where the band's name came from, but started as a solo project. I just got so tired of putting 4 or 5 years of everything you got into a band, and you feel like you're almost ready, and then it all explodes and it's time to start from scratch. And I just figured, let's do this record the way I want to do it, call it a solo record, and then if musicians come and go, this sort of the momentum of the band, the train, the movement of a band, it keeps on going. Person can quit, go their own way, replace them with another member, but the name Evil Elvis keeps on moving. And here we are, I guess 14 years later, third album, getting ready to do the fourth album, which I'm pretty excited about. Ever since Napster, things changed a lot as far as sales go. But the first record that I did, Evil Elvis, was an EP, and I sold just over 5,000 copies of it.
Great.
I was very happy with that. For an indie band, you know, we don't get videos played on, you know, Much Music or MTV. You don't have money to do ads in Rolling Stone or big newspapers to tell people that the album's there for sale. So it really is just strictly, hey, here we are on stage. You want to buy our CD after we're done?
Right. Off
the side of the stage kind of thing.
What year was that?
That was 2000 when Evil Elvis came out.
Right.
And then in 2006, I did Viva Las Vampire, and I only sold 2,000.
Still good.
And I thought, you know, oh, that's not good, you know, less than half. But I wasn't approaching it in a modern way. I was still looking at it on a CD terms, and I hadn't gotten to, you know, iTunes and all of the downloaded stuff, which I did when Tattooed Fuckwit came out in 2011. And, I mean, it's such a weird thing to talk about numbers when you're an indie band, because in the old days where you and I come from, you know, this number would mean almost nothing. Mm-hmm. But Tattooed Fuckwit, I'm pretty proud to say, has gotten, there's probably about 10,500, 11,000 of it floating around. And for an indie band, that's really, really good. I mean, a gold record in Canada is 50,000 still. You know what I mean? So 10 for an indie band
you could still achieve that.
Is pretty, you know, I would call it a successful album.
Absolutely. 10,000 is great. And what year is this?
That's 2011. But, you know, it's weird, like I think out of that 10, there's probably only about 17 and a half that are actual CDs. Everybody just wants to download to their player, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't, you know, for an old dude like me or you, if you don't get with the way music is being distributed, you're going to lose. I guess that's the moral of that story, right?
Yeah.
And it's so weird to see that from 2001 or 2000, when I put Evil Elvis out, there was still more, at least more of like people wanting a hard copy of it. Mm-hmm. And as we move along, people want less and less of the hard copy and just want the music, which, you know, is fine, right? I mean, where we came from, a vinyl album, you know, there was like artwork.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I don't even know if people listen to whole albums as much as they used to anymore. You know, people seem to, you know, download songs more than that,
sure.
Right?
For sure.
And in some ways that's good. I mean, you're looking at the technology level again, right? Bands used to go on tour and, you know, you'd set the tour up and you'd have no idea whether people have heard of you or whether you're going to do well in, you know, Cleveland or wherever. But with downloads, you can pretty much track what region you're being downloaded to.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So you can see that you're being downloaded a lot more in, you know, let's say a Cleveland as opposed to a smaller town, it tells you don't go and play that town because they don't know who you are,
That's
right? And that's kind of a cool thing as well about the new technology, right? It's just being able to know exactly where everything is, right?
So we go to Europe.
I mean, the big thing for me when I sort of woke up to technology, which was only like around 2000, like after 2006, when Viva Las Vampire, and I was sort of scratching my head of like, why did I sell less than Evil Elvis sold by so many? And it's because of the technology moving forward. It's the same thing with, you know, the communication of bands throughout the world, right? I started touring in Australia in 2008 simply because I met a guy in another band and a girl in another band that were both from Melbourne, Australia, and sort of fell in love with the band, loved the albums. And they were like, you should come down to Australia and tour. And I, you know, all of course communicating over the internet, but, you know, I was sort of saying to the guy, you know, I'm just a club musician. I play bars, and like the Cadillac here, I play bars in Toronto. And he was saying to me, because of Australia being such a remote country, you know, we're lucky that we live so close to the States and such a cheap air flight from England. We get all the good bands. There isn't a big band that doesn't stop in Toronto on a tour. But in Australia, it's a little bit more starved. Somebody has to become a bigger artist for them to spend all that money to go down there and tour in the first place. And he was saying nobody comes here to tour on a club level. So just come down here, I'll put on the posters from Canada, and they will fill up bars just out of curiosity because people, And so 2008 was the first time that I did my first international tour. I did 12 dates in Australia, and it was fucking amazing to see. Right. And that was all the same thing, you know, technology, right? You've got a website. You're meeting bands in Australia. This guy sets up a tour for me. He's a booking agent in Australia, and I basically had just sort of studied what he had done, and I saw that he had done Anti-Nowhere League, a big punk band from the UK, and he had booked their tour, and I thought, well, let's take a chance on this guy. And now I've done 5 tours in Australia, right?
Have you?
Yep.
Wow. So how many shows total?
I'd say about 35.
Wow, awesome.
When I first started, that first tour that he set up for me in 2008, I did 12 shows, right? Because I'm a club artist, there's no point in playing the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday because everybody has to wake up and go to work, you know. A lot of people get paid on Thursdays. So when you're doing a club tour, I always find, you know, beneficial just to chill out, take your days off on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then maybe an all-ages show on Sunday. Because if people haven't heard of you, they're just not going to show up on a work day anyways, right? So we did 3 weeks, 12 shows, and we did a lot of the smaller towns, like of course we did Melbourne and Brisbane and Sydney, bigger cities, but we also did the smaller ones, like Canberra, which is like their Ottawa, and Newcastle, which is sort of like their Hamilton, right? Oh, yeah. And after a while, I just sort of, you trim it down, right? You know, it costs a lot to fly there, it costs a lot for hotels. And on the second tour in 2009, I'd play, I usually started my tour in a very small city. I think it was about 110, 120,000. It's called Toowoomba. And it's about an hour from Brisbane. And so on the second tour, we were playing in Toowoomba again, at the same bar.
Somebody said if you got till December,
so we're playing this bar in Toowoomba, and one of this young rockabilly kid comes out to the show, and it's like, you know, hey, cheers, how's it going? Let's have a great time. And then the next night I'm playing in Brisbane, and he's there with his girlfriend.
Wow.
And I'm sort of like, what are you doing here? And he said, well, you know, there's nothing going on in Toowoomba. You know, it's only an hour drive. I might as well come and see you in Brisbane. And that's when the sort of light bulb goes on that, like, why play the smaller towns if they're that close? It would be like, it would be like playing Toronto and then doing a Mississauga show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're just not going to do it. You'll have the people from Mississauga drive in and see you at your Toronto show. Yeah. So now we've trimmed it down to 2 weeks, and we do Perth on the other side of the country now, which was a big step because that's a $700 flight.
Okay.
It's you know, the nuances of touring on a budget level. You know what I mean? You stay on people's couches, that kind of stuff to save money, right? But Perth was a big one because it's a $700 flight. When I first started going there on the first tour, I took my whole band, and it was like insane. I used an Australian bass player on the first tour, but I brought my guitar player and my drummer. So it was $6,000 just for the flight to get me and them down to Australia. So needless to say, I lost a bit of money. The second tour, by the first tour, I had met a lot of good drummers. The bass player that I used was really good. So by then I've met a few drummers. He's like, oh, we should use that guy on the next tour. So the next tour, I brought my guitar player down. You've automatically saved yourself $2,000, right? And then by the second tour, I started meeting a lot of great guitar players, and now I just go down by myself. So now it's gotten to losing money, to breaking even, to actually making money, right?
That's cool. So do you communicate with them electronically to make sure they're up on the music and all that?
Oh yeah, and it's kind of weird, you know, like it's like in a small way. Remember Saga?
Yeah.
You know, I used to always look at it, and you realize like they'd play the El Macombo, you know, 250 people when they were in their hometown, and then they'd go to Germany and they'd play stadiums. They'd do a stadium tour of Germany, right? And when I first started going to Australia, I mean, the first tour I did, Sydney was sold out, and Melbourne was almost sold out. Melbourne was a lot bigger bar, but it blew my mind, right? Like, you know, and gradually the rooms get bigger, and you sort of become, you know, more like a sort of cult, like a Ramones kind of legendary sort of thing, right? And like the bar that I play in Perth is about 540 people. And for me, that's a big, big step, right? To be playing a bar that big in a country that I don't even live in, right? So it's kind of like a small version of that Saga thing, you know what I mean? Yeah. You play, you know, Cherry Colas or the Bovine to 150 people here, and then I fly to Australia and I play 500, you know, seat bars, and they're sold out.
Well, we met at the Phoenix.
That's right. But that wasn't my show. But that certainly was a little more like what I'm used to. Actually, that was bigger than what I'm used to. I think that was about 800. I think that was about 800 people that night.
Yeah.
I know that it has to go past 750 for them to open up the balcony.
Okay.
And they opened up the balcony, so I figure that's over 750. Yeah. Let's call it 8, right? But yeah, that's more people than I actually play to in Australia. But that's my crowd as opposed to Robert Gordon's crowd, right? But it's just kind of weird, you know, when you go to a different country and you're a bigger performer there than you are in your own country, right? It's kind of weird.
Yeah. So, tell me about the history then. So you went back to 1999.
Yeah, before that I was in an industrial metal band called Noise Gate. Before that I was in a band called Black Llama, and that was sort of what I thought was going to be my big claim to fame. It was right around the Slick Toxic days and the Svengali days, who were all friends of mine, right? I was in this band called Black Llama, which was started around 87, 88, and we put out one EP, and then in 91 I got a record deal, which I was pretty excited about. And 94, me and the owner of the label got into a really bad argument. It was actually about the release date, you know. The guy who owned the label also owned one of the bigger studios in the city of Toronto. And
do you want to mention any names, or?
I'll mention his name. His name was Tom Tremuth. He has double platinum albums and double gold albums for Helix.
Oh yeah.
You know Give Me an R.
Oh yeah.
You know that one?
Yeah.
That
what
was
the studio?
It was called Hypnotic Sound, and then it became Hypnotic Label.
And in 91, what was your record deal for? What was
it was for one album, and so it was Hypnotic / A&M. Okay. Hypnotic was the small label, and A&M was the big major label that distributed. So because he owned a studio, I recorded my whole album in off time. You know, and sometimes it would be ridiculous. He'd call me with 2 or 3 days notice and say, you know, someone canceled get your band together and be here Friday night. We're going to start working on, and it was a lot of that. So it wound up taking about a year and a half to finally get the album done. We had like maybe a couple of backup vocals to do and a couple of guitar solos, and the album's done. And then he calls me in one day, and the release date was Halloween, October 31st.
93 now?
No, this will be October 31st. 93. And he calls me into the studio, and this has been a year and a half of just getting dicked around, being a real sweetheart about it. Whenever he tells me we've got some studio time free, never getting even a block of a week to record. Always a couple days here and a couple days there. So after a year and a half, the album's finally almost done. A couple backup vocals, some leads. He calls me in and says there's not enough buzz on the album. So we're going to hold back the release from Halloween until maybe January 31st of 94. And I just sort of, fucking atom bomb goes off in my brain, and we just sort of went at it. And it was a really bad fight. And, I had a bad temper back then, a little harder time controlling my temper. Maybe that was it. And we got into this big explosive argument. That's all I remembered. And it ended with him looking right into my eyes and going, well, maybe we just won't put the record out at all then. And I was like, whoa. At that moment, you realize, okay, I've gone too far in this discussion, argument, whatever. So I got up and went, okay, well, whatever. And okay, I'll talk to you soon. And, how do you end a meeting where bomb is dropped like that, right? So I leave, and then 3 days later, I got a letter from the label's lawyer saying you're being dropped. So my big sort of break was sort of gone, right?
That sucks.
Boom.
So let's...
That's life, buddy.
Yeah, let's speak about something after you're done that. There must be some anecdotes or something that...
I think in some ways it's a good
make us
thing,
laugh
right?
now.
You talk about naming names and things, and Tom Tremuth's name I'll name anytime. He was a dick. And just a real old school guy that, Helix and Honeymoon Suite were a far ways away from my grunge band Black Lemma, Mm-hmm. And he was just sort of out of touch, was still kind of stuck in the Poison era, even though it was now the 90s, right? But, in some ways it keeps you hungry, right?
Sure.
It keeps you, less expecting of stuff, right? There's guys that I know that, are still sort of flogging the old, the music that they played in 87, right? And, you got to kind of move. Even on a terms like I don't play metal anymore. I've played metal before. I've played blues before. I've played industrial before. I picked this kind of music because it was my turn to start my own band. And, like I said, it started solo. So I picked psychobilly because it was my first love was punk and rockabilly, right? But I do love metal. But you look at these guys and what they're playing, and it's like, there was a band we played with just recently, talking about naming names, and they were called Hollywood something. We played with them out at the Rockpile West.
Oh, yeah.
And they had something Hollywood in their name. And there's the first thing. It's like, well, you're a Toronto band. Why is the word Hollywood even in your band's name, right? And just everything about these guys screamed 80s. And I mean, that's just kind of crazy. Look how far metal's come, right? You know what I mean? Metal evolves, just like psychobilly evolves. All kinds of music evolves. It doesn't stay stagnant, right? And I think that's one of the good things about losing your record deal. It keeps you hungry, right? It keeps you to the ground and to the street,
Great. So tell me some of your other favorite places in town to play.
My favorite places are here, the Cadillac.
I like that.
I love playing this place. I was never so happy when he cut that big hole in the wall right there and started... he bought the building next door and turned it from, he literally doubled the size of the bar. I'm very happy for him. All from a guy who started off, he started off with graffitis and, graffitis can barely hold 30 people in it, right?
That's great, though.
But he made enough money off of there to take a chance and buy his own place down here in Parkdale, right? So we play here a lot. We play Cherry Colas a lot. And we play the Bovine a lot. And it's good to have. There's a new place, the Tennessee, just down there that we're starting to play once in a while. But you know, really you just need a couple of local bars when you're in your hometown, right? I'm more trying to concentrate. The coolest thing that's happened to us, actually, it was kind of one of the reasons why I wore this T-shirt, was this is a big psychobilly festival. It's probably the second or third biggest psychobilly festival that goes on in the whole world. About 2,500 people just invade this small town that's sort of a suburb of Barcelona, Spain. And this is one of the biggest things that's happened to me. We were trying really hard to play the psychobilly meeting for this year, for 2015. But he was saying, you know, oh, we're going to, one of the things they do for you is they work out your work visa for the whole year for Europe. So I'll be able to go over and play one show. They pay for my hotel for a week. And they fly you over to Spain, so you get to sort of chill out and party with all the other bigger bands. It's kind of like a big step for me. You know, it's the first time I've realized that, wow, you know, you're sort of one of those, like, I guess, top 5 bands. I wouldn't say I'm anywhere near the top yet. Those are the Brains and the Gutter Demons and, you know, probably the Matadors still and the Creep Show. But I'm probably like number 5 or number 4. Maybe I'm bigger than the Gutter Demons and the Matadors now. Maybe I'm number 3, but it feels kind of cool. The point being, he goes, we're going to book you for 2016. And I was feeling kind of bummed out about it, thinking, oh man, I really wanted this summer. And then a friend of mine said, oh, congratulations, man. He goes, you know what you're going to be doing a year from now? And I think that's when you've sort of made it as a band, you know? Every year, like this year, I know what I'm doing for 2 weeks in Halloween and the first couple of weeks in November, I'll be in Australia touring. And now I know literally what I'm going to be doing over a year from now. Going to Spain to play a show. So that's kind of cool. And it really sort of is a level thing, you know, where you go, wow, you know, like Mad Sin, Demented or Go, the Meteors. These are the biggest psychobilly bands in the world that get to play at the psychobilly meeting in Spain. So I'm pretty excited that we've been chosen to play the gig.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
So
it's the same thing as that little card that I gave you. There's a very famous artist, that guy there. His name is Marcus Jones, but he paints under the name Screaming Demon. I'm actually writing a song for him right now called Screaming Demon, because I just thought it was such a great title. You know, Hot Rods and Rockabilly, right? Screaming Demon, it's just such a great title. But he became, you know, I'm a fan of his artwork, and I sent him a couple of CDs, and he became a fan of it, and I asked him if he would do a drawing for me. And I didn't think that he would actually do the Police lineup, which he did. But I'm the only living or real person that he's drawn.
Is that right?
Yeah, he's done Elvis as a Police lineup with tattoos on him, right? He's done Marilyn Monroe as a psychobilly girl. So they're all dead people, or he's done Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein, all psychobillied up with tattoos on it. But I thought, wow, that's really an honor, man. Like this, I'm the only real, actual person that he's done in that way.
Cool.
It's kind of an honor, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to name anybody that you're working with or have worked with?
Well, the new album is probably going to get mixed, or definitely a couple of songs will be either produced or mixed by René Lemaitre from the Brains, the singer, guitar player of the Brains, which is pretty cool. I would say they've probably become, the Creep Show were #1 Canadian psychobilly band amongst the world. But when Sarah left the band and they replaced singers, I think that was hard for the fans to, you know, people get accustomed to singers. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I started this all off in 2000. It's just because I got tired of bands breaking up. But people got really accustomed to Sarah being the singer of Creep Show, and she wanted to leave. You take a chance, you find the best singer you can find, but I think that they've probably not as popular as they used to be, and the Brains have sort of taken over as the #1 Canadian psychobilly band, and they deserve it too. Actually, the last Brains album, we were talking numbers before. The last Brains album sold 100,000 copies. So worldwide, that's really good numbers, right?
Yeah.
Like, and Rene owns a studio in Montreal. He's produced Flesh Roxen from Finland. He's produced a bunch of American bands. He's a really good producer. So he'll be mixing a couple of songs, and then I'll be producing most of it myself as usual. We're hoping that's going to come out within a couple of months. As soon as we're really close to having the video done, so we're going to finish off the mix of the Too Fast For You. That will be the first video, and then we're going to start working on the video, and then hopefully that'll keep fans happy, because we're not going to be playing live for a while. So we'll give them something to listen to, give them something to download. I'll probably put that on the Bandcamp thing for free, just to give fans something new to listen to for a couple of months, and then the new album drops, hopefully in August or September. I want it out before I go to Australia, which is my big market. And then next year, with my European touring visa, that thanks to Psychobilly Meeting, we're definitely going to do a tour. You know, one of the coolest things that ever happened to me? Last year, I went to the Psychobilly Meeting for the first time. Two of my friends were playing. The Brains were playing, and the Gutter Demons were playing. And so I brought this card, which is the same picture that I gave you. This is the album cover done by Screaming Demon of me as a zombie. And there on the back is the free download to my Bandcamp. So obviously you go over there, you want to promote yourself as much as possible. And I'm just like going over there, throwing them out to anybody who's looks like a cool Psychobilly fan. If I'm standing next to you grabbing a beer or a sangria for my girlfriend, I'm handing you this card and saying, hey, there's a free download there. So I wind up meeting this guy. For starters, he's a Japanese dude, and he had to be 6'4", 6'3". You know, how many Japanese guys are that tall in the first place? So he stood out. And I was standing next to him. I wound up giving him a card and saying, you know, there's a free download of 3 songs at Bandcamp if you want to go and download some songs. And he thanks me. And on the tour last year, I was playing in Sydney, and I was playing at this really cool bar. Oh, the name of the bar is... I can't think of it right now. But it was like one of the cooler bars in Sydney, and we were playing. And I see this Japanese guy, and I walk up to him, and I think that he had been on one of the tours beforehand. And I say, hey, man, you know, I recognize you from somewhere. Where do I recognize you? You know, did you come to one of the tours, you know, in 2013 or whatever? And he says, no, you gave me one of your cards at the Psychobilly Meeting in Spain. And I arranged my vacation. He's a Japanese guy. And he arranged his vacation to come to Sydney.
No kidding.
Because he knew that I was going to Australia to tour. Obviously, Sydney is a really close flight from Japan, right? It's only a couple $100 flight. So, you know, he had wanted to go to Sydney on vacation, and he arranged his fucking vacation to go to Sydney so he could see Evil Elvis play. That one was like a sort of moment, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a small world, right?
That's awesome.
Well, thank you very much, dude. This is
man, it's my pleasure. It was my pleasure to meet you at the Phoenix, and this is...
Well, thank you, dude. Like, I have been told a few times that we've blown people away. Absolutely. And I think that's kind of the ultimate compliment, because lots of times if it's a big bar, like I know that at the Phoenix they didn't give me the full lights, and the sound man was kind of pulling the sound back. So I didn't get full volume, and I never get full lights when you're a backup band. They save that for the headliner.
One of the employees, though, certainly told me that this guy is a great frontman.
Well, whoever that was, you tell them thank you, because Mickey, yeah, I love Mickey.
Mickey's great.
Yeah, it's hard, you know, you work for a long time. You know, I'm 52 years old. I've been playing music for 30 years, and it isn't until I went Psychobilly that I got any recognition at all. You know what I mean? So maybe it's just sort of wandering around trying to find your sound when you're young. You play for a metal band because you like metal. You play for an industrial band because you like industrial. And then when it's all over and it's time to, like, what do I want to do musically? It's like, well, I love the Ramones when I was 15, and I love the Cramps when I was 15, and it's just, this is my music. So I think that's what it comes down to more than anything, right? You find your niche, right?
Exactly.
You know?
Oh, great interview. We got more than half an hour already. This
Oh,
is
you got some good stuff in there?
Yeah, great stuff. I'm not cutting a thing out of it.
Thank you so much, dude.
It's all unbelievable. So, any upcoming show that you want to mention or anything?
We're playing on Wednesday night,
Yeah.
and it'll be the last show that we do for a while until the album gets done and the video gets done. Okay. One of my guitar players, his name's James Cassidy. He was supposed to be coming here from Australia. His girlfriend is actually taking a university course here in Toronto. And it's like, man, this is going to be awesome, right? Yeah. So it'd be the first time that we played as a 2-guitar band, with like sort of a guest musician, my guitar player James, but he couldn't afford the flight, right? Once again, $2,000 is really expensive to go to.
All the way around the world.
Yeah, it's on the other side. When the second or third tour that I did, you know, you don't want to when you're on stage, but you wind up saying a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah.
And I think one of my jokes on like the third tour was like, can't you guys just move this country closer? You know what I mean? Like, of all the places for you to get your first recognition, right? And become sort of like not famous, but infamous or club level famous. I mean, when I was a little kid, my goal was to be Steve Tyler, right? And then punk rock came along. I was like 15, 16, and then I wanted to be Johnny Rotten, right? And now, you know, I've sort of, at least in Australia, have really, you know, have acquired that sort of, you know, Ramones level fame that I've searched for, right? You realize how much luck it takes to get to that stadium anyways, right? But in the long run, I think for young musicians, it's an apprenticeship, you know? You have to be prepared to make nothing. You know, like people go and they work for magazines, and they work for a magazine for a year and don't get paid a thing just to learn, you know, or the same thing. It's an apprenticeship, and it's a long apprenticeship. So if you're in a band, you should be prepared to like play free shows and play for almost nothing for 5 years before you even start to make a little bit, you know.
Longer sooner.
Yeah. And if it wasn't for guys like you, I mean, that's another thing that the internet changed, right? Press has become so corporate that you can't trust it, right? So if you're going to go to real press and real like band excitement, you have to go to guys like you in the first place. Because the only music that's getting any press now, remember when we were kids, in magazines like Rolling Stone or Circus or Cream or any of these magazines, there would be like dance music or what I call phony music, right? That would be popular for 5 years. And then there'd be a movement of rock music and guitar music would be coming back, you know? Like the punk rock thing, you know, of the 70s. And then it got real phony and crappy around the new wave days. And then the 80s metal scene came out, right? And then we got really lucky because the metal scene went right into the grunge scene. Yeah. And it seems like maybe since like mid-90s rap metal, like Korn and Limp Bizkit and stuff like that, there hasn't been a real press movement towards guitar-based music, towards heavy music in a long, long time. You know that? It's been like since mid-2000s, late 90s, that anybody in a heavy area of music is, you know, everybody's too worried about Kardashians and Maroon 5 and Usher and all this like garbage that is put out in the world, right? Dance music, they call it, right? Soulless music, right? When you and I were kids, before disco was even invented, everything had a real drummer on it, right? So it was like Commodores and, you know, I can't even think of all of them, you know, Parliament Funkadelic and all, you know, there were big, great dance bands. I have nothing against dance music, but they had real drummers, right? The invention of the drum machine sort of killed music. And now all rap, all dance, all hip-hop uses a synthetic beatbox, right? And it's soulless, right? Maybe that's why they always over-sing and do all these, like, you know, vocal calisthenics and shit, because they're trying to show you something human that's on this record, because it's all synthetic garbage, right? You know what I mean? Music's gone bad, downhill. And, you know, it's coincidental, or maybe not, that right around the last time that I can remember hard-edged music getting pressed, and that was probably like Korn and Limp Bizkit and rap metal, Linkin Park, that kind of stuff, was right around the time that Napster was invented.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's weird, right? The music's a strange thing, right?
Yep. Well, it's been a great, great interview. I can't believe it. It's like if you've got 40 minutes to kill, listen to this guy because it's all great.
Well, thank you very much, man.
I want to say, you got to see Evil Elvis live because they're unbelievable.
Please come and see us live.
And buy the CD. It's still physical music here.
Physical music, a real drummer playing real music.
Drummer, real stand-up bass player, and he lifts the thing over his head all the time.
Creepin' Jeff, also known as Doghouse Jeff.
Yeah, and KC, one of the best frontmen in the business right now. So you don't have to go to Australia to see him live.
That was a good one, dude. Thank you very much.
See him Wednesday. Where's Wednesday?
Wednesday is at Cherry Cola's.
Cherry Cola.
Playing with two really good bands, too.
That's great. Okay, man. So I will definitely catch you again soon.
Rockin', brother.
Thanks for being on Musicians in Bars Getting Beer at the Cadillac Lounge.
Love it.
Cheers.